Hello, this is Crispin Flintoff from Not the Andrew Marr Show. Before this video starts, I'd just like to ask if you'd subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because we will be covering the general election from a totally different perspective from what you get from the mainstream media. We'll be talking about the candidates who are taking on Labour and the Tories and pushing them all the way. So please subscribe and get updates. Why have you decided at this time to stand? And also, I'd just be interested to hear what you think about George Galloway's success. Does that give you more confidence?
Lots of people have been asking me to stand as an independent, but I've always rejected the idea because it is really difficult to win as an independent. No matter who you are, how popular, how well known, it's really, really difficult. And, you know, for example, you don't have the structure or people advising you on how to get through all the really complex rules around funding, finance, and everything else. So it is difficult. But as some of you also know, I work in a law centre. And I see every day the poverty, the absolute dire poverty that people are living in. And it didn't start with the Tories. You know, it was there in 2010. We've had the benefit bashers under Labour, we've got them under the Tories. And the Labour Party, if we can call it that now, bit by bit, are just repeating exactly what the Tories do. They are not going to change anything when they get in power. But we've seen more and more this kind of authoritarianism from Starmer and his kind of unwillingness to kind of apply democratic processes, you know, in appeals or anything else. So I have a real concern about Labour being in government. And in many ways, so they're going to have the same policies. If you think about, we've got a housing crisis, and what are they saying? They're going to tinker with planning laws. I mean, developers have far too much power already. We have masses of tower blocks being built everywhere across London, and yet we have massive people living in hotels, sofa surfing, living in slums with damp that is damaging their health. And in one case, somebody died from that, a child. So then we see Starmer bit by bit. We have all these MPs parading what they will do, talking about they're not going to change, for example, the benefit cap, the two-child benefit limit, whole range of things, cracking down on migrants, the same old things. And we had just recently, they were talking about, we've got to attack really young people who are on benefits. They can't live a life of benefits. If you know a young person living a life of benefits, please, really, it's ridiculous. And particularly when you think these MPs are attacking these young people on benefits. If you're a young person on job seekers allowance, you get less than £4,000 a year, hardly a life of luxury. Whereas if you're an MP, what is it now? 86,000, about to go up to 90,000. So it's the same old, same old.
Mm.
Then you come on to Gaza, and we have unfolding. Somebody said it's become like ambient genocide, is it the term was used? And that's exactly it. Every day we see on the TV genocide, war crimes, starvation of the Gazan people. And what do we get? Our opposition leader, that well-known human rights barrister, agreeing with war crimes. So it's just too much. So I do think, and all over the UK, people are saying we've had enough. So despite the difficulties that we see with being independent, despite all the problems, we've got to make a stand. My MP in Harrow West, Gareth Thomas, nobody's ever heard of him because he really doesn't do anything, either locally or nationally. But he's been the MP for Harrow West for 27 years. He was involved in the MP's expenses scandal. He voted for the Iraq war. He voted against repeatedly an inquiry into Iraq. And now he refuses to vote for a ceasefire. But he writes long, long emails and letters to constituents pretending he supports a ceasefire. So it really is enough. It's not a single issue for me about Gaza, important though that is. It is the poverty, the attacking of people on benefits, the disabled, the racism that we're seeing in the UK rising. And what I really predict is, we all think Labour is going to get in and be in power, okay. But when they offer nothing, when they offer absolutely nothing to people, what's going to happen? I really fear that we're going to get an even further rise of the far right that we're seeing in other European countries, and people will go to those parties because our politicians have utterly failed people, and they wonder why people don't vote. We're seeing crackdowns on protests. We're seeing, you mentioned the extremism, organisations that are bona fide organisations doing good in the community being referred to as extremists. It's really quite frightening, and people don't realise that they are living in kind of clown cuckoo land. And if you look at all the people coming up as parliamentary candidates under Labour, they're mirror images of Starmer. You know, it's really quite frightening. So that's me why I'm standing.
Well, we'll look forward to catching up with you again, and when you need our support. And Harrow West is quite easy to get to as well. It's on tube trains and stuff like that.